Hello, welcome to EdgeWave's webinar series. I'm Chu Kim Iskit, the CMO, and I'd like to thank you for attending today. We're going to be presenting shortfalls of Office 365 security, the myths, the truths, and really talk about, the feature-rich product that they have, but what they're lacking in security and how that can impact you today. So before we begin, I'd like to do a couple things by going over who our guest speakers are today, as well as just a quick summary of our key points before we begin. Today we have two speakers. We have Jozef Vegh, who joins us from TechAero. He's the co-founder and CEO, and he brings with us over 20 years in enterprise email management and archiving. He's formerly the CTO of Metalogics, who also is a key player in the email management space, and played integral roles in product development at Siemens and other enterprises, as well as been an entrepreneur for most of his career. Secondly, Steffe spent over 20 years in network IT, specifically security for the last 15 years, spent most of his career at EdgeWave, going across all our product suites focused on email, web, and archiving. So let me go ahead and talk about our key points today. Tony, switch the slide here. There you go. Today what we're going to talk about really is a few things. As you know, Office 365 adoption has been skyrocketing. We're going to talk about the adoption and the market traction that we see today. But one of the things that we've noticed, and a lot of our customers have noticed, is that there's a need for better and more advanced security so that there's a higher level of accuracy through the security that you have today with Office 365. How you can address that is working with companies that have hybrid threat detection, which brings really an element in automated technology as well as human analysis together to get that level of accuracy. And one of the things that Tony will touch on is Threat Check. This is a new EdgeWave service that will be available shortly that is end-user security awareness-driven service that we have that will bring that all the way down to the endpoint. And to complement that, backup and recovery on how to protect your data if and when something should happen to your business and you do experience a disruption from phishing or ransomware or other type of malware attacks, and how you can recover from that. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Jozef.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about Office 365 today. So let's jump back in time. So I don't know how you guys are aware of Office 365, but I've been basically with Office 365 since the beginning, and since I was working on various email archiving products actually from 2002 when Hosted Exchange was started by Microsoft. So that basically, if you take a look on this timeline, Microsoft had a vision to bring his exchange to the cloud basically 15 years ago, and basically in 2002 they had the first hosted exchange on the cloud. So basically then they went to the collaboration. They bought some companies. So basically they also issued the 2005 version of Exchange, which was actually adding messaging and collaboration. And I don't know whether you're aware of Microsoft Online Services and later on BPOS, but these been basically the pre-versions of today's Office 365. So that happened from 2006 till 2009. And I had a chance to be in Washington, D.C. in 2010 when they officially announced the Office 365 worldwide launch. And we created actually the migration product that time, which was presented in DC in 2010. And you can see basically the Office 365's birth and basically the life started in 2010. And basically that's been like 3 versions already. So Microsoft updated the platform once Office 2013 was released. So basically they upgraded the Office 365, then Office 2016. So basically there's been an upgrade to Office 365. And needless to say that Microsoft is basically doing changes on a monthly basis. So that's a continuous deployment. And I had a chance to be actually in Inspire yesterday, and Satya Nadella was introducing basically the brand new Microsoft 365. So they did a rebranding yesterday in a keynote. which basically comes with new features and some new packages. So you might take a look on that one as well. So there will be an enterprise package and a small business package for Microsoft. So Microsoft is bringing together Office 365, the Windows 10, so basically the PC and the desktop world and the enterprise mobility under the hood of Microsoft 365. So Tony, you can go to the next slide. Speaking of numbers, so since I was pretty much connected to Microsoft from the beginning, so we as our company, we had hoped, to have a faster adoption, and it didn't really happen in around 2010, 2012, but as you can see from the numbers, and these are now numbers are pretty fresh, that Microsoft actually reached end of 2015, 60 million of active users, right? And basically nowadays they claim to have more than 100 million users, which is a pretty lot of users they have on the platform. And needless to say, these people are basically coming from enterprises too. So these are not Google-like, Gmail and customers or Facebook-like users, but these are pretty people who are working for companies. And as you can see from the platform growth, so basically the enterprise users, the active users, they grew by 300% from year to year last year, as well as that almost every company in the US, over 100 users and more, they already have some kind of Office 365 subscription. So that's really interesting. So what Microsoft achieved in the last couple of years. Next slide. I mean, I was also analyzing what people do with Office 365, and I don't know how far you're aware of that, but Office 365 contains the Exchange Online subscription, as well as SharePoint Online and OneDrive, for example, and also among other messaging solutions. So basically, having OneDrive for Business or SharePoint Online and Office 365 and Exchange, you tend to use a lot of documents, store a lot of documents on your subscription, basically in the cloud. So it turns out that basically almost 60% of the sensitive data people store in Office 365 are Office documents. So basically documents created Word, Excel, spreadsheets, PDFs, and so on. So they are stored there in a form of sending an email attachment or putting them on OneDrive for Business or even SharePoint. So you can take a look on the charts closer. And basically the SharePoint adaptation is a little bit smaller, but basically it's also about 30% today. So basically you see how people are using, leveraging these applications. So, but of course, the biggest is Exchange, right? And the second biggest is OneDrive for Business. So basically these adaptations means that having sensitive data in the cloud as well, it brings a lot of security questions, and Microsoft is trying to address them. And I will tell you how. So Tony, next slide, please. So Office 365 comes as a all-you-can-eat menu. So of course, Microsoft is providing a lot of features towards the security and malware protection. But as it usually is in all-you-can-eat menus, basically don't have all the advanced features, and you don't have all the advanced protection. So basically, this is the list of the, let's say, the top 10, top 12 security features Microsoft provide in Office 365. So of course, they have an anti-spam protection built in. Which is pretty good, but he's missing some more advanced anti-spam protection and phishing detection. So basically, if you're okay with the basics, that's basically the subscription. But if you want more and you want to be more protected, I mean, you should look for something else. And also regarding the anti-malware protection, I mean, that's pretty fresh. It just happened 2 weeks ago, the NotPetya attack, where basically a lot of files being encrypted. So basically, that's what Microsoft cannot really protect you from. As regards of archiving, Microsoft claims to have archiving. However, this archiving is only there for Exchange, and there is no journaling. Journaling means that basically only all your outgoing and incoming messages will get archived, that Microsoft doesn't provide this. And Microsoft is relying on third parties like EdgeWave basically to do this kind of archiving. And of course, speaking of archiving, there is no transparency. So basically, once you archive something, the messages are moved to a special mailbox. So working every day with your messages, suddenly your messages are not in your mailbox anymore, but you have to look in an archive mailbox. Needless to say, basically, the archiving comes from the enterprise subscription. So basically, being a company of having up to 250 users, which is a business size, so you don't really get a chance to have this, and you have to purchase E3 or E5. And this subscription costs you a monthly basis, $20 and more. And they just announced new prices from 1st of August yesterday. So I'm surprised that basically the prices went up. So basically for $20 to $40, that's, from my perspective, it's a bit a lot money to ask. Of course, there is auditing, and you have it actually the auditing features on the SharePoint, but basically they don't provide anything for Exchange, for example. So if somebody is sending emails and basically they changing the attaching files and retrieving emails, you don't get any auditing log about that. As well as data loss prevention is one of the features they provide. And basically it's interesting in SharePoint, it's pretty good. So basically you have all the audit logs, and you can even tag documents for data loss prevention, so people cannot really print it, cannot send it, cannot share it, but it's basically only limited solution for SharePoint Online only. And there's also an e-discovery suite, basically where you can search for your emails or your colleagues' emails, but it doesn't work for the SharePoint, for example. And e-discovery doesn't work for the people they left the company. So once you leave the company, then you basically cancel the subscription of the people, and if there is no legal hold, that you cannot find his email. So it's really not that easy to work with them. And if talking about retentions, if the retention expires, the email is just lost. So basically it might happen that some one or the other mail gets lost. Next slide. Yeah, encryption. So Microsoft introduced a new kind of encryption. So communicating from Exchange Online to Exchange Online. So basically you can choose from like your own keys to share the keys, and basically the emails are encrypted, and not only in the transport layer, but basically they're encrypted as they are in the mailbox, and you decrypt it when you read them. The drawback on this is that basically if you have a partner who uses Gmail, there's no real tools. They can decrypt basically these emails. So you can use it within the Office 365 environment, but you can't really use it with others. Another feature, legal hold. It's working on Exchange mailboxes, but it doesn't work on SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business. And speaking of legal hold and compliancy, in my opinion, legal hold, you should be able to set legal hold whatever you want, right? Of course, there's information management policies and information rights management. That's basically also limited basically to one or the other solution. So Exchange Online and SharePoint Online. Needless to say, these enterprise features come only with E3 or E5, so they are not available for the smaller encryptions. And for those who have Exchange on-prem and they want to host Exchange service in the cloud, that's also possible. So Microsoft is providing Exchange hosted services, so you can have an Exchange hosted archiving, a hosted encryption, and also online protection for Exchange. That's a package what they provide, but this is basically a dedicated server which runs on their cloud, so basically it doesn't really bring you the Office 365 functions. So I would say if somebody wants to do Exchange hosted service, I would rather go with Office 365 the business or the enterprise package, and I wouldn't use the hosted services because of the limitations of not being able to integrate with the Office 365 functions. So Tony, I think I'm giving the word to you.
Thank you, Joseph. This is Tony Steffe, and I'm going to talk about how the EdgeWave Prism email security platform is a very nice complement to Office 365. Joseph's talking about the limitations and some of the feature sets out there with Office 365, and that's really where EdgeWave comes to the table with a product that can complement that and beef up the Office 365 environment. And it really starts with our philosophy, and this has been an EdgeWave philosophy from the very beginning, and that is a hybrid approach to security. EdgeWave is a web security company, an email security company. Those are the common places where things are coming in and out of the network, and that's really where we focus. And our thought is, and philosophy is that there are automated techniques, and then we have our human analysis, because at the end of the day, the person on the other end of that wire is an attacker who is a human, and they're going to bring their resources to try to infiltrate the company, and that's where we focus. With the automated techniques, there's a number of things that we're doing in the ePrism world that are continuous and automated. One of the first ones, and really quite effective, is to just simply not process mail for people that don't exist. So we do things like that, AV scanning, malware scanning, of course, that multiple levels of scanning that happen on there. And then we do other checks for the mail system, like looking for somebody outside of the network who's trying to appear to be an inside user. They're spoofing your domain, they're trying to get something in. I frequently talk to Office 365 folks that have concerns around this and are seeing a lot of spoofed mail messages getting into their network. We're always beefing up this functionality. We added a fuzz check recently that is simply looking at the type of attack where somebody is spoofing a customer domain by changing a couple of letters, an I for an L and things like that. And the idea is that maybe people won't check it or notice that it's actually a different domain. So we do these things like fuzz checks, the SPF checks for other domains out there, URL scanning of the content in there. There's a variety of different types of scans that are happening on an automated basis within the ePrism world. And then on top of that, we add and we have what we call 0-minute defense, and that's a process that has live human beings in it. There's a group within EdgeWave, it's called the 0-minute defense team, and what that team is doing is they're just continuously looking for new campaigns. And so they're looking for spam campaigns and ad campaigns and phishing campaigns and all these different types of things that might be attempting to get into your network. And what we do, and the reason why we do this, and really why the product was designed around this concept, is that campaigns will morph. They'll change. Once somebody figures out how to get past a particular algorithm, they want to launch that. Well, the human process to what we do allows us to respond very, very quickly, and that's a 24/7 process because, of course, these things never sleep. It gives us a high degree of accuracy because a human can very easily tell the difference between, hey, this is a phishing campaign, this is an advertisement, and this is just bulk spam. Or you look at it, you can tell, and that's really what we do with that. And we're always writing these rules and monitoring them and making sure things are very, very accurate. The idea extends to a platform that is a hybrid platform. It's looking at all of the components of email security within the organization. So we're, of course, doing the inbound, outbound scanning of mail messages, doing TLS enforcement, making sure that messages are sent over encrypted pathways, and then components like DLP and encryption become part of the package here. Email archive, which historically archive has been maybe thought of as primarily a compliance need. What we're seeing now is that really archiving is becoming a security concern as well, because that's where people go when something happens to the mail server. Hey, we can still get to our legacy mail. Maybe the other messages are encrypted or whatnot on the mail server. We can go to our archive, still give people access to their mail messages, be able to do recovery to that. Again, EdgeWave web security company, email security company. We have a similar type of folks over on the web security side. They're called the iGuard team. They feed into the ePrism side, and so again, these are the places where things come in and out of the network. And we've taken the concept of having live humans in the email security process. We've taken that and we have expanded on that. We have a feature that is coming out. It is called Threat Check, and it really takes this idea that human beings are very good at detecting malicious content. And the idea with this is that taking Threat Check gives an organization the ability to turn every employee into a potential detection node for malicious content that's trying to get into your network. It works hand in hand with the security awareness program. And what it allows people to do is that when they detect something, when something gets into their mailbox and they say, you know, this doesn't quite look right. I've got an advertisement here or a notification of a package delivery. I don't remember delivering something. This looks suspicious to me, right? And frequently at that point, there's not too much that the people can do. Hopefully they delete it. Maybe they just leave it there or whatnot. What threat check does is it taps into that really rich resource of information out there, and it lets people say, hey, I received a suspicious looking mail message, so I want to report it, and I'll report it in an effective way. And that reporting, which is done in the form of a button within the application, will then send that sample message off to the EdgeWave Zero defense team, so trained professionals who know what they're looking for and what it's looking like. It's also notifying the IT staff, so that as an IT administrator, you have input into the types of malicious content that folks are sending to you. So it really does become a force multiplier so that you can see if there's anything happening on your network. That is a new feature that is, it's going to be going into the beta here shortly. We're expecting it in the Q3 timeframe, late summer, for rolling this out, and it's going to be part of the ePrism platform. The archiving process that is part of the ePrism platform, and we talk about archiving in terms of compliance. There's also the security concerns around archiving. With the EdgeWave archiving platform, we can certainly handle the core functionality that archiving systems were originally built for, right? Being able to archive and have a historical record of email messages that you can search for e-discovery and be able to present on demand. Absolutely do that extremely well. So the EdgeWave archiving platform has e-discovery searches to it, full body search, text searches through the data store and the messages. There's flexibility in deploying this, and this is an interesting piece, because another conversation I have very frequently with Office 365 folks is that Office 365, it is a cloud-based system. A lot of legacy archiving systems out there don't necessarily work well with that. So the EdgeWave archiving platform, we support Office 365. We do so very natively. It can use Exchange Web Services, where we connect into Office 365 and then be able to pull the infrastructure into the cloud-based archive, so we can preserve end-user folders, individual mail messages. We can delegate administration, so maybe an administrator can search the entire archive, end users can search their own archive. That access to the archive is done either through a cloud-based portal, so a web portal to log in and search messages. There's also an Outlook plugin that you can use, and that allows you to search the archive, search archive mail messages, lets you do some other nice things like large file sharing and things of that nature. The other thing that the EdgeWave archive supports is journaling. So we'll support a journaling format. Office 365 natively doesn't support that. They don't want a journaling mailbox on Office 365. We host it up in the cloud for you, and then you can use the journaling process within the Office 365 to be able to deploy those mail messages. So that really is the high level of what the ePrism email security platform is, how it adds up, beefs up the Office 365 platform. As Jozef described, Office 365 adaptation is skyrocketing. It really is a popular platform. It is something that I talk to folks all the time on my day-to-day basis as a sales engineer. The concerns that I hear frequently is that Office 365 just needs better advanced security, additional features, the DLP, the end-user-to-end-user encryption, and that's really where EdgeWave steps in. So we do the hybrid approach. So we're going to use automated techniques as it makes sense. We're always going to have that human analysis, so that, again, no matter what somebody dreams up or creates or crafts, we've got a quick, fast way to respond to it and be able to address it. We're expanding that concept with threat check. so that your end users within the organization become detection nodes and feedback points, so that you as an administrator or security professional have insight into what's happening on your network, as well as being looped back into the system, so that the EdgeWave security professionals can address that. And then EdgeWave has our archiving platform so that you can back up, you can recover if something happens to your data. If in the unfortunate event that something did get locked up or encrypted on the network, the archive is a way to be able to recover from that. It's a way of giving people access to their mail messages in the meantime, so business can continue on while the IT staff gets things back up covered. And that is a I'll call it a new thought about how archiving is used. Certainly the compliance concerns are out there, but archiving can now be a way of giving people access to their legacy mail messages. And with that, I will turn things back over to Chu for the Q&A section.
Thanks, Tony. We do have a question here. If someone has the ePrism product today, will threat check be an add-on or add-on with cost or not? So actually, I'll take that question. So for customers who will be encouraged to join our early release program, we will be able to go through early release with them at no additional cost for threat check. And then in the future, there may be an additional cost for the item. So hopefully that answers the question. What we will do as a follow-up is send a link to everyone who's interested in the early release. That will be available for current customers. And then shortly after that, we'll do general release and be open to any enterprise who's interested in the product. So hopefully that answered that question. Let's see. Got another question. Can users report possible spam through an Outlook plugin? I'm referring to the new feature. Okay. Can the users report possible spam through an Outlook? Okay. If the question is yes. So let me, sorry, Tony, I'm going to take this question again too. The button that's integrated as an Outlook plugin will sit on their desktop, and they will be able to, if they see a suspicious email, question it. As you know, a lot of phishing and ransomware emails are highly deceptive these days. They can actually, rather than opening the email, they could actually just push the button, and the email will be diverted to a different folder, so it's no longer in their inbox. And then they'll be alerted that it is being under review by EdgeWave. The IT administrative side of your enterprise will also be alerted, and then they'll get a dashboard update as to the progress of the review of that particular campaign. Once there is a verdict on it, then we will actually go ahead and globally write a rule to protect all users within your end user base, and then we will work with you in terms of how you want to mitigate the actual spam or phishing attack or campaign that's been diverted to the folder. So more to come on that.
Chu, if I may, I'd like to just jump in and add a bit to this. Today with the ePrism, there is a report spam button that you can get it from the EdgeWave website, just edgewave.com, and downloads. And there is a report spam button, and that is a button that gets loaded into Outlook, and that is a way of submitting things into the iGuard team. And just listening to the description, there might be a little bit of confusion between the two, so I'd like to add a little color there. You know, there's a couple of things that are really key differentiators to this, and one of them is that we're specifically talking and targeting phishing type campaigns. and not to say that spam won't get in there, but certainly phishing can act and behave a little bit differently. There's infrastructure on the EdgeWave side that is being developed as part of this project to do, let's call it pre-processing to those types of mail messages, specifically around phishing. The other key thing that threat check does is it closes the circle with a feedback loop. So today, with that report spam button, spam's going to go in. It's going to go into our reviewing team. They're going to look at it and see what's going on. This is getting feedback back to the administrator and having rules specific to that, kind of looping back into the system. There's reporting around this and things of that nature. So it is perhaps conceptually similar in that, hey, these are both buttons that are an Outlook, and what is the difference? But the key thing is that this is a much more complex process that is happening, a much more complex security check that's going on, and ultimately has feedback to the administrator, which is that report spam doesn't do today. So hopefully that helps a little bit with the new feature.
Thanks, Tony. That was good additional feedback on that, and mentioning that yes, we do have that capability today from a spam perspective, and with the new feature, it would be not just spam, phishing attacks, and obviously more advanced threats. We've got another question here. Jozef, do you expect Microsoft to make some improvements in these areas in the future? And I think areas meaning security and archiving in the future. What are you seeing anything, especially since you're at the Inspire conference today, that makes you think they're going to enhance these in the future?
Thank you for this question. So far, nothing new was announced. So basically, the new Microsoft 365 is kind of repackaging what's been around for years. On regards of the archiving, the problem with the compliant archiving is that in order to have journal archiving, so archiving everything which is inbound and outbound, Microsoft would need to add data storage for each of the tenants, so each of the customers, because they need to keep all the data. And basically, since this is a subscription-based business, so this is really hard to get. So Microsoft, I would say, doesn't really want to increase its own cost. So for that reason, they created an interface being able to journal the messages somewhere else. So that's how our solution, the EdgeWave Content Archive, comes into place. So using Office 365, the emails get journaled actually to the archive platform of EdgeWave, which is running on Azure. And basically, we get those messages, and basically, that's pretty good. And the other side as well, I was talking to Microsoft, if somebody would take the archiving on the business subscription, it's roughly would cost like up to $9 a month, which is also a really expensive price in my view. And as regards of the security features, so they've been acquiring a lot of companies since beginning of Exchange hosted services. And I think everybody knows, that they have spam filters, but there are still some holes they don't want to basically increase or patch. And I think there's a lot of space to third parties basically offer, let's say, more advanced techniques against phishing and malware, because they don't really provide, for example, URL protection. And if you're coming from the desktop, so basically that's a missing link. I don't know whether this answers the question.
Great. And then another question, and then Jozef, you can start, maybe Tony can add, but how does the user access mail in DR mode?
In DR, like data recovery? DR?
I believe so.
Okay, so basically, as if we talk about the archive perspective, so basically in DR mode you have multiple options how to access the email. So you have an integration into Outlook, which means that you have the add-in within your Outlook, and you can do full text search from the Outlook. So you will find every message which you are entitled to see. So if you are an administrator or a compliance officer of the company, of course, you will be able to do full text search on every mail which has been archived, regardless of whether Exchange is online or offline. So basically, searching in an archive or accessing those emails has nothing to do with Exchange online or even on-prem. So that's one of the options. There is also a portal, what Tony was mentioning. So you can basically do a search within a web portal we are providing, and doing a full text search on every mailbox. And of course, we are providing also a kind of Outlook view on the messages, so you can also log on into the, let's say, archive mailboxes. Let's say that way you can browse into the folders and basically you can find the message, and you can also do a single click data recovery. So if even the end user, I mean, let's say the use case, the end user is accidentally deleting a couple of messages, it's not a problem, because once he can find it, like using the full text search, second, when he's logging into his archive view, he can basically do a one-click restore to his Outlook if he needs it. And basically the third way of accessing those emails, we added also mobile applications. So being on the way and traveling, so you have one integration into Outlook for mobile, and second, there is also an application which you can install from the iOS store and the Google Drive. So basically you have various ways how you can access and also do search and also restore these messages.
Okay, great. You know, and that actually brings up, you touched on a point, Jozef, that I think maybe both you and Tony could touch on, and maybe we'll start with you, Tony. But integration, we touched on this through the actual presentation, but it might be good to clarify this. But do the services that we talk about today integrate with how does it integrate with Office 365? So Tony, maybe you want to start with kind of the ePrism side, and then we can flip over to Jozef to talk a bit on the archive side.
Sure. So the way that the ePrism integrates with Office 365 is that we're going to be the point where mail messages come in and out of the email domain. So that means that the MX record for the customer domain points to the EdgeWave cloud. So mail messages are going to come into EdgeWave first, they're going to get processed, and then legitimate mail is going to be sent on to Office 365. For outbound scanning, you configure Office 365 to use the EdgeWave cloud as a smart host. And so mail messages that are going outbound from Office 365 are going to go outbound through the ePrism. So that's it's going to do a virus check, a spam check, which are really key things to stay off of real-time black hole lists. It will also do the DLP scanning. We can do it inbound as well, but DLP scanning outbound, and then things like the end user to end user encryption that uses the park and pull methodology. That's going to be a function of using outbound. What I will point out that when you're using Office 365 and the ePrism system, one of the things to note and make sure happens is that you restrict Office 365 to only accept mail messages from the EdgeWave cloud, so that EdgeWave does become that true one gatekeeper for mail messages that are coming in and out of the network. It's not difficult to do. We have a knowledge-based article on how to do it. It's just important to make sure that it's done. Otherwise, what spammers will do, what attackers will do, is they will go around and try to just send things directly in Office 365. So that's how the email security scanning happens: inbound, outbound, MX record, and smart hosts. Jozef, do you want to describe the archiving integration for Office 365?
Yeah, sure. So basically, there are multiple ways how we can do that, and maybe Tony, you could jump to the picture we showed, so maybe it's easier to understand if that's possible. But basically, I was talking about like journaling rules in Office 365. So in Office 365, you can set up Exchange journaling, and that means that basically you can set, I want to archive inbound and outbound messages, and you create a journal rule where you need to provide an SMTP address. So the SMTP address is actually an address which points to the EdgeWave cloud, so where our email management and archive runs, and only one MX record needs to be set up. So what we do, and what Office 365 will do, that every incoming and outgoing message will be sent right away to the EdgeWave archive. So that means it will be archived and by this there is a compliance archive created. So that's one way how you can look on that. The second is basically using ePrism instead of the built-in Microsoft technologies. So basically every incoming and outgoing message, basically, which comes from the outside world or goes out, will be intercepted by the ePrism. And we have a straight integration with ePrism. So basically ePrism, as you can see it on the picture, can directly archive these messages right into the archive. So by this, we are able to archive messages from the outside world even before they hit your mailbox, which is a good thing. And on the other way around, if the messages go out, of course, basically, they are also archived into the archive system. And the third option is basically we do not only provide journal archiving, but we do provide also mailbox archiving. So basically setting up rules on the EdgeWave archive cloud, you are able to archive every person's single mailbox for data recovery, offloading, and full text capabilities. So by this, you get the whole structure of the mailbox also reflected into the archive. So it's really easy to do data recovery, searches, and basically working with the messages for the user itself.
Okay,
Tony, you want to add something to that?
No, I think you've hit the key things. You know, journaling is an option as well as full mailbox archiving.
Great. We have a question. Is there an app for iOS or Android for viewing whitelist or blacklist? I think, Tony, that's a question more for you.
So there isn't an app specifically for viewing those. You know, there's the web portal for the end user digest, or excuse me, the end user quarantine that you can get through the digest. That's usually how people will interact with that. The end user quarantine, that web-based end user quarantine, there is what we call a light version of it or a low bandwidth version of it that gets used with mobile devices sometimes if there's not good internet connections. The end user digest, the end user quarantine, is also where you would go to read and respond to mail messages when you have email continuity. One of the features with the ePrism system is if we can't deliver mail messages, we'll spool them, and we have a continuity feature that lets people go in and interact with those mail messages that are awaiting delivery, so you can read and respond. And that's all done through the end user quarantine. Now, the archive platform does have an iOS, or does have tablet-based clients that you can use to access messages in the archive. That does exist on the archive side.
Great. And then we got a question: do you capture user activity, in particular record of what the users opened?
No, not on the ePrism side.
Tony, maybe I can add something from the archiving side, right?
Right.
Because I mean everything we kept in the archive, we have an auditing log. So basically everybody who accesses messages or even searches, we have basically a log of all the activities what the users do.
Okay, great. I think we are done with most of our questions today. We did get a question about some sales collateral. Oh, hold on. How do OWA users flag mail for review? Joseph, you may want to take that question.
Okay, so basically in OWA, so reviewing the emails, I can take it from the archive perspective. So the users have a way of archiving messages right out of the OWA. So basically there is an archive button, so you can click on that, and once this message has been archived, so you can do also searches on that. So you can open the portal, and of course once something gets archived, you have also an app that you can basically restore that message from OWA, or you can basically open an attachment directly, and that not only works on OWA, but we use the new Office app technology from Microsoft, so it works the same way on iOS Outlook for iOS as well as Mac clients, because this technology is basically independent of the technology you're using. So basically, regardless of whether you come from Outlook, on Microsoft, on Mac, or iOS or Android, you have the same user experience.
Tony, anything you want to add to that?
So if we're talking about threat check, I would just ask to table that question simply because it's a product that is currently in development. So don't have a specific answer to that, and certainly wouldn't want to give a misleading answer. I mean, we certainly recognize that OWA is a very popular way that people access their Exchange environment. So I would imagine that that would be supported.
Okay, great. I think that answers the question. All right. Do we have any final questions? If not, we'll be wrapping up this webinar. Just a quick reminder that we will have a recorded version of this that will be sent to everyone who's attended or registered for the webinar. In addition, as some of you have, I believe, experienced from our past webinar, as part of our webinar series, we'll have another one. The next one's on threat check for security awareness, and we will send in our follow-up to you the date and time and registration for that as well. Thank you very much for joining today. We appreciate your time and your patience as we were going through our slides. Thanks for the guest speakers, both Jozef and Tony. I think they did a great job. And stay tuned for our next webinar in our series. Thanks, everyone.